Hello and welcome to the latest Sarnia Cinema podcast. I'm Winter Tyson and with me are Claire Mockett.
Hello.
And Russ Calloway.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about some of the latest films playing in the local Cineplex known as the Mallard, and also we're going to touch on something that's out on DVD. The main films tonight will be Kick-Ass 2 and Spring Breakers, but we've also got some short reviews of The Heat and The Conjuring. Okay, so I suppose really the best one to kick off with would be Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass 2 follows on from Kick-Ass, the rather brilliant independent superhero movie that came out a few years ago, in which a normal guy decided to become a superhero whose superpower seemed to be that he could take a beating. That film was both funny, it was quite irreverent, it was quite insane in places. What did we make of Kick-Ass 2? Russ?
Well, I don't think we should say we, because I don't think we're in agreement on it, to be honest with you. I went to see it last night. I ended up going to see it with Claire, actually. And
I see.
Yes, but it was. It's funny. It's funny how that happened. Totally by accident. And I didn't have a lot of hope for it, if I'm honest with you. I kind of read some reviews, and everyone seems to be giving it, relatively middling, if not, kind of 2-star-ish kind of reviews and so on and so forth. And because of the reasons you thought it might get those kind of reviews, because it's a sequel that isn't really expanding hugely on the original. It's not the same director. It's not. Michael Vaughan? No, that's cricketer. Matthew Vaughan. Yeah,
Too much ashes.
Exactly. It's like it's a different kind of guy directing it. I mean, same cast obviously, but without Nicolas Cage, who was so brilliant in the first one as well. Obviously, they've tried to kind of fill that gap with the Jim Carrey kind of character a bit here. But I have to say, I really did like it. I laughed all the way through it. Thought it was genuinely funny. And I went in, it started at about 7:15, and by the time I looked at my watch first, it was 8:30, and it had like 15 minutes left. And I'm normally a bit of a watch checker, especially if I'm not particularly enjoying it. I'll be like, oh God, it's got another hour left, and oh God, it's got 55 minutes left, and then you're like that. But I was really just, taken along with it, and it was funny. And I mean, I know the story from the comics. I've read all those, so I went in kind of it. So I think it represented them as good as it can, because the second kind of story arc that it kind of follows here did certainly notch it up in terms of kind of very extreme violence in the comic book, and this one certainly kind of toned down areas of that you may not believe, depending on how you feel about the film itself. I don't really know what Jim Carrey was on about in terms of distancing himself from it. I think he could have just kept quiet and not given it the publicity that he did by kind of doing that. But there were a few things that fell flat. There's a slightly ill-advised attempt at a rape joke in there, which I don't think worked particularly well.
I've got to say, that was a moment where I was sat in the cinema and I thought, I'm leaving. I'm going to go. And then the joke turned into, you're not man enough to rape someone.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going to spoil. Sorry, we usually do. But, yeah. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it was funny because
incredibly unfunny.
It was.
Was that the part when she was walking when they were in the woods?
No. When they broke into Night Bitch's house, and the motherfucker was planning on giving her a bit of the old in out, and he couldn't perform. I mean, I have to admit, no one laughed in the cinema we were in, particularly during that moment. I don't think there's. Personally, I haven't got a problem with the joke at all. It doesn't bother me. I just didn't think it was very funny. I mean, that's the thing.
This is it. I mean, sorry to butt in, but there's a team in Kick-Ass too, and because he joins up with other superheroes.
He does. It's like the Avengers.
Yeah. And there's a team called Remember Tommy, and they're essentially some parents who've got a missing child from years ago and haven't been able to move on. They've got T-shirts with missing child on, and I thought, you know what? There's something darkly hilarious within that as a throwaway, like a Family Guy joke.
Okay.
When, as a sort of a cutaway, a moment. But actually, when they're on screen chatting about it, it just, for me, was just a moment you just thought, oh, this is really horrible.
Oh, I don't know.
I just felt there were a few moments like that where you thought, I know what the joke is here, but, you missed.
I didn't get it with that. I found them genuinely quite funny. I mean, I think they're in on it. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They're not being misrepresented in any way. They're not being taken advantage of. They're just that's how they're dealing with their grief, as it were. And like I say, that one joke aside, I didn't hate it because it was controversial or it was necessarily in bad taste. I've seen much worse jokes and found them much funnier. I just didn't think it was very funny. But like I say, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny. I thought it's more Chloe Moretz's film as Hit Girl than it was Aaron Johnson's as Kick-Ass.
I think that.
Which I think that's because they combined Hit Girl's kind of side, what do you call it, sequel comic and Kick-Ass 2
Union
into
J
one.
Advert.
Well, I thought that was hilarious. Union J
oh
advert. I read something today about someone kind of saying that aside, it's very funny, but I actually thought that was hilarious. I don't know if Union J were in on the joke when they agreed to have their faces. They must have been. They're not stupid. And so, yeah, I thought that was funny as well. And like I say, I read people criticising it that it's a bit Mean Girls-y, but yeah, it is. But Mean Girls is funny as hell.
Is very funny.
So I haven't got a problem with that either. Yeah, and so like I say, I did really enjoy it, and I didn't expect to, which is always nice, you know. And so for me, it ran along at 90 minutes, and it was a good laugh, and there was some good violence, which, you know, I think potentially there's less really overt violence in this than there is in the first one.
Definitely.
You know, the first one, there's a lot more people that lose limbs and get stabbed and get heads cut off and
the first
things.
one's a lot more vicious.
Yeah, but then again,
it's more of a vicious film.
Then again, there's more C words and F bombs and.
I mean, I was really looking forward to this film, and it really just fell flat. I think Jim Carrey's in there doing a more or less a nothing kind of role for about 10 minutes or so. He's on screen.
He was funny.
He doesn't do anything. He's got enough. I mean, he just has no impact on anything in the story.
I didn't really understand his history properly either.
Oh yeah, there was no kind of
I didn't really know where he came from.
I mean,
or
the
what he
great
was
thing about
doing.
the Nick Cage character, Big Daddy, in the first one was he was both the truth of what Kick-Ass was doing and the real kind of crazy bastard kind of what Kick-Ass was doing. And he was kind of like, yeah, well, you know, this is Batman essentially, and of course he'd use guns. That's just, you know, let's not play around with any pretend rubbish codes of ethics or anything. But there was just this kind of big hole when there was nothing sort of progressed. No one in the film had much to do. I thought there was something quite interesting with Kick-Ass's friends, and one of the funniest scenes was there's a really great joke with the team ups quite early on. Involving sort of Kick-Ass and his relationships with his friends in real life, which I thought was which was absolutely hilarious. But the rest of it just, I mean, when everyone else started turning up in the costumes, it just kind of looked a bit like the Warriors gone a bit wrong. And I don't know, there's something in the film that just doesn't work, and I think it's because there's nothing to it. There's no kind of central idea behind it. Whereas with Kick-Ass, there was very much the simple idea of if you have no power, that doesn't abdicate your responsibility for anything. And that was dealt with really smartly, and it was, you know, I think one of the problems is I watched Kick-Ass about 2 nights before, because I haven't seen this in a while. And it's such a smart and funny film. And strangely, a film I didn't like at the cinema as much as I like now. Mm-hmm. But Kick-Ass 2, I just kind of thought, this is just... And the sick stick, I think, did it for me. Yeah. And you kind of think... Yeah, that desperate. But there's a joke. There's a joke right at the start of the film. And I'm going to shut up in a second, I promise. But there's a joke right at the start of the film where he only does pull-ups on one arm. Yeah. And it's almost blink and you'll miss it. It's a literal kind of... It's a misshot joke. It's literally badly put together in that you don't get it until he starts doing the other arm. You don't get that he's been masturbating too much. Because it's so badly and clunkily shot.
I didn't even get that.
I didn't get that.
I don't even know that.
I swear there's a joke at the start of the film. He's always pumping one arm because he's got one... At the start of the film, he's got one big arm.
He doesn't have one big arm.
He does.
He does not.
He starts pulling up on 2 arms, and she makes a face at him, and he starts pulling up on one, and one of his arms is really developed and one isn't. And I swear it's a joke that's just been really badly put.
That was the joke from the beginning.
And then the rest of the film, he's only ever pulling up on one arm.
No, that's just like a montage. It was like a training montage of
later
him
in the film,
getting
he's doing it
stronger.
again. No, I swear it's a mistimed joke, and it annoyed me.
Oh, you've been annoyed by your own mind, not by the film.
I'm annoyed by
You're
a masturbation
mad.
joke.
You've finally lost
Claire,
it.
what did you
You're
think of
seeing
it?
jokes. You've made up your own jokes.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. I found it really, really funny to some extent. Some of the jokes, it was like with the stick whole thing. I thought, that is a bit desperate, but it's always funny to have that toilet humour. But for me, this film kind of was in limbo. It didn't really go anywhere. I didn't know what it was doing. It kind of felt like the second. It's trying to do the second album, and you fall flat in your face a bit. I really wanted to have some resolution to something, but it felt like he had to go through. Spoiler alert! He had to go through all the training again. He had to restart the origin story, and it was almost like a restart. And he had a T-shirt on saying, "I hate reboots." When he was in his pajamas and stuff, which I found quite funny because she's about to do a reboot of Carrie. I didn't. I wanted there to be something. Is this actually going somewhere else now? Are we trying to get some more introspectiveness on people's characters before we go into something deeper? I wanted there to be some kind of grounding to it rather than not knowing where people were going. And I think I did speak to some people and they said, "Oh, you've got to read the comics." So I think I think I'm going to read the comics. But I loved it. I thought it was a great film to watch. But for a superhero film, it wasn't that great. But there were some really good lines in there saying, this isn't a comic book. And motherfucker turned around, excuse my language, turned around and said, well, actually, you're the one who you made it like this. So now we've got to finish it, or something's got to happen. And I thought that was the deepest, for me, that was like the most deepest thing in there, that they've created this world for them. And now they have to do something with it. So they have to be true to their characters and true to what their position is in this story. So it was almost as if them looking outside of the story into the story, saying, okay, this is what we've created, what do we do now? And I found that quite interesting, because when he, near the end, when he almost wanted to say something like, we're only play acting or something, it felt like for a second they were out of it, and that was the most honest part of the whole film. But that's probably going into a bit too deep into something with toilet humour.
For me, it really didn't help when they got Ian Glenn in for like 5 minutes, and you just thought, he's going to be the bad guy now. And when he goes visit his uncle in prison.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it was, I mean, that guy should have been the Joker. That's ridiculous. I mean, he was
he was so
just
creepy.
for 5 minutes, just absolutely.
The one from Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Absolutely electrifying. Creepy. And then they just, I thought he's going to come out and just, he'll do something. This is going to go nuts now. And and John, but that's the film, John Leguizamo, so we're always good.
There will be a third one if this one does well. There is a Kick-Ass 3 currently being released as we speak in comic book form every month.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So, I would imagine that they would make it.
Yeah, I'd go and see it again because it is such a good idea.
Yeah.
It is such a good idea.
So they've won. They've still won.
Definitely recommend it for people to see.
Okay, now moving on to a very different film. Claire, you went to see The Heat. Can you remember any of it?
No. I think I literally, I did fall asleep.
So what is The Heat then?
The Heat is basically, it's a kind of well-to-do cop or FBI agent. Sandra Bullock plays Ashburn. And she's paired with the foul-mouthed Boston cop. So it's kind of like your Cagney and Lacey gone a bit funny.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And they basically have to take down this ruthless drug lord. So kind of characters are really, you do get into the characters, you do kind of understand where they're coming from. So in that respect, the film does take you on quite a good journey. But it's just the same copy and paste of characters and who they are. You got like the tough chick, the well-to-do chick, and they end up being friends and everything's okay, and they manage to do stuff. How they manage to get to one place to the other is just real creative crap, basically. It's regurgitated stuff. I mean, I love Sandra Bullock. I think some of the films she's done have been really excellent. And I also love Melissa McCarthy, who plays Mullins. who's the foul-mouthed cop, and she is really foul-mouthed throughout the whole film. But she's the same as she was in This Is 40. So if you've seen This Is 40, when Melissa McCarthy plays a parent in that film, she is exactly that character in the Heat.
I've forgotten, but you're right.
And Sandra Bullock basically plays pretty much the same character from Miss Congeniality. So someone's obviously seen these, and we've got to get these two together. Yeah. The whole concept of the film would have been really good, because there's in America and the States, there's a lot of these female cop films, TV shows like Rizzoli and Isis and stuff that really works. I mean, that's slightly different. It's a cop and kind of more. What's the person called who deals with the dead bodies? More like mortician or CSI. CSI meets like Cagney stuff. So obviously, like the two female pairing stuff does work well, but with this storyline, and it's been done so much, it's pretty much every 90s film put together in cop form. But yeah, I wouldn't. Well, if you're into Sandra Bullock or Melissa McCarthy, the jokes are there, and it is quite an entertaining film. But as I said, it just didn't get anything from it at all.
Yeah, I got to say, I saw a trailer before The World's End, and I swear that it was quite a full cinema. Because you went, we went to the cinema the same night.
Yeah.
As
Did
well.
you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, World's End. And I remember the trailer played in for the Heat, and there was the level of disinterest seemed quite amazing, and then the whole cinema went, "Oh, it's Biff from Back to the Future."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's some real classic characters in there, but yeah. Just watch it if there's nothing else on. Literally nothing else on.
That's a cracking recommendation.
Okay. And I went to see the new James Wan horror movie, The Conjuring.
Are you okay?
Starring Patrick Wilson, who I think's a bit of a dude.
He's in all of his films.
He's really good. He's a great actor.
He's in Insidious as well, and Insidious 2 coming up, and then he's in all of it. Yeah.
The makers of Insidious did this film.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they did Insidious and Saw and I don't know, some other stuff. And you know what? It was really good. I tend to get dragged to a lot of these sort of 15 sort of horror films by my sister Mary, who's absolutely nuts for it, and you should see her like birthday list. It's like a box set of Don't Go in the Warehouse and Stab 8 and all that. It's real kind of, just a real horror fan. And so when these things sort of pop up at the moment, I tend to go along to them. And I watch a lot of stuff like, what was that Ethan Hawke thing with the family being hung outside the house.
Oh, I
didn't
see any of it.
With the boogeyman or whatever, all that kind of nonsense. But this was a really good, fun film. Now, it's not a classic horror film because it doesn't have that thing like... I know we always come back to The Shining usually on this podcast, but it doesn't have that weird bit of oddness that makes you go, oh, it doesn't have that little thing that Poltergeist has. But what it did have, it had people investigating paranormal stuff with cameras and tape machines and stuff like that, which I really love. I don't know why. I just, whenever there's a film and I see someo's going to be trying to record stuff, I think...
EVPs.
Yeah, I'm going to watch
big
that.
White Noise fan.
And it's... there are exceptions. But this was a real kind of... The cinema was full. Every 5 minutes, there was jumping. There were literally people screaming at times, actual screams, because there's this good thing that James Wan does, that when he does the jump, but the camera lingers for a second, so there's a real kind of wallow in the horror of what's going on. And he's quite good at creating an image. Like I say, it's not a classic horror film, but to watch with an audience, it's really, really good fun. A lot better fun than you'd expect it to be. I said Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are playing a which is always hilarious.
Real
when you
life.
look at these things, people go, is it really based on a true story? You think, well, no, it's not, is it? Because, but just a really creepy sort of bump in the night, chairs flying up in the air, poltergeist, demons.
Clapping in the dark.
Clapping in the
trailer.
dark.
That's when I stopped watching the trailer.
Again, I think I mentioned something after seeing it. I can still hear you, even if you're not talking English. Is what I will take away from that particular cinema experience. I can still hear your conversation. You are not noiseless if you're not speaking English.
Terrible.
I just don't know how to tell you to shut up. That's the problem.
Take a course.
But 20 minutes in, they did shut up because some really horrible stuff happened. So I I think The Conjuring is the best thing on at the cinema at the moment.
Wow.
I recommend it to anyone.
I really want to see that. I mean, I just, as you were saying about you like these kind of films with people recording stuff.
Oh.
Because of some of the script stuff that I wrote a while ago, I researched into this couple.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they have this, some of the stories in there, even though obviously they've been created with the stories, but it is actually based on these people.
They're actual investigations, yeah.
These investigators. And some of these, there's, not to give any spoilers away, but some of these, I haven't seen it yet, and I really want to see it, but they've got dolls and stuff that were literally possessed.
Yeah.
The doll in that looks far more scarier than
yes,
the actual doll.
I've seen the actual doll, which is like...
Which looks like
it's
something
like
from Play
Ragdolliana or something, isn't
but
it?
It is... The reason why I'm so interested in seeing this film is because I actually knew about these people a while ago. When I saw this film advertised, I was like, wow, this would be really interesting to see what happens. Similar, funny enough, to how when the Crystal Skulls, Indiana Jones' Crystal Skulls came out, I'd read a lot into all of that kind of mythology. So when it came out, people didn't know what on earth it was about, because no one had understood what the Crystal Skulls were.
So you could tell them how rubbish it was.
And then I could
you were able to do that.
But anything that's based on some kind of thing is always, for me, I get really kind of into, because it's based on people's lives and what they've actually tried to do.
See, I don't think I've seen a scary movie in the cinema since The Orphanage, which is a long time ago.
Gosh,
but that's because The Orphanage scarred me for life.
This is roller coaster scary.
Yeah,
it's not
it's different. It's not going to haunt. It's not going to haunt my dreams.
It's not a creep out one.
As long as it's not a creep out one.
It's like The Woman in Black. It
I
reminded
did
me
see
of
The Woman in Black.
It's that
my
type of,
goodness.
No, you're right. I did see that.
Except with extra tape recorders and Super 8 cameras, which amazingly pick up a lot of light in the dark.
I've got a 5-day weekend this weekend, so maybe I'll have to go and see it.
Seriously,
check it out.
I really recommend
Should we
this.
go and
Well, the wife won't go, so we could go on a date.
Again.
Bad times for you, Winter.
Bad
You come
times.
again.
It's
You
all
come
good.
again.
No, just be upset. It's not.
It's not the same, is it? It's not the same.
But if you like the Innkeepers, the Stone Tape, Poltergeist stuff, where people turn up and go, "I'm
Yeah.
going to record this demon," you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. So the other film we're going to watch, we've watched it, is Spring Breakers, directed by Harmony Korine, who wrote the quite awesome Kids, but more on that in a moment. This tells a story of a bunch of girls who go to spring break by essentially robbing some people, and that's how they pay for it. I don't know, it's like Terrence Malick went a bit odd. I watched it
18-year-old Terrence Malick, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it on a double bill with The Wizard of Oz, so two very, which, unsurprisingly, as Russ mentioned a few weeks ago, meh. But two very different James Franco performances. Well, Russ, I've got to admit, I don't feel qualified to say anything about this, because after an hour, I just said, I'm done.
You didn't watch it all?
It's been 2 hours
and
already.
I did. Okay.
Did I miss out by not seeing the last half hour?
If you watched the first hour, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. As long as you saw James Franco turn up, then you didn't miss out. Because, I mean, my problem with it is that it's gagging for a script. It is crying out for someone to have written it down on paper before the people said it, because a lot of it was improvised. And I just think you can tell, you've got these long... You can't... Terrence Malick does long dialogue-free scenes because he's painting beautiful pictures. Harmony Korine does long scenes where people are repeating dialogue because he hasn't got much else to say. I read a review of it where he was talking about how I wanted there to be a lot of repeated dialogue, so I wanted it to be like a DJ, like kind of remixing it. And I'm like, well, that's not a reason. Anyway, it's not what you expect it to be. It was marketed very heavily as like Girls Gone Wild, like 4 girls go on spring break, pick up some guns and go and rob people.
It's really oddly marketed.
It's not that at all. So it is girls, rob a place to get some money to go to spring break, but then they kind of do a bit of coke, get arrested. I mean, I'm giving it away, but it doesn't really matter. And then James Franco bails them out. And I mean, he's great in it. When he turns up, the film's like, okay, this is interesting now, just because he's got a great performance. It's one of those, it's Gary Oldman from True Romance. It's Drexel, isn't it? That's what it is. And then they end up getting some guns, getting in some trouble with kind of bit of drug battle between the kind of other gang that's around, and then they end up with a big gunfight, and it all ends. And that is it. It's a bit of something and nothing, really. There's an extended scene where there's like, what's her name, Vanessa Hudgens, and one of the others that isn't famous in a pool with him doing a montage. Girlfriend. Yeah, it's one of the, no, she's gone by now. She actually plays very much to type Selena Gomez. She kind of bails out quite early on because she's not happy with what's going on.
Just ruined it for me.
And so, yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't... It's not brilliantly shot. It's all neon and, the whole way through. And they keep repeating a lot of the same dialogue. He overlays a lot of the same phrases. James Franco's always in some scene going, "Spring break, y'all." And that's even like when he's not saying that, it's being overlaid over things. And every edit's like a gun cocking. Almost every one. But not within a scene, but every scene change is like a gun cock on the edit. And I just didn't know why. I didn't understand what he was trying to do. I didn't understand what... apart from thinking, I've got a great idea for a poster, which is let's get two extremely clean-cut American girls and 2 unknowns who are known for Disney. Let's stick them in bikinis with guns.
Do you think it's kind of like a cleansing for people? So if they are kind of depicted with Disney and now they want to move on to other stuff.
Oh yeah, I think that might be a reason for doing it, for sure.
For them.
Yeah, and I can see why James Franco would do it, because it would be really interesting for
James
him.
Franco's James Franco does everything.
He does everything.
He does everything.
Yeah, he has no problem with anything. He just does it. And let's say the same's happened with this. And I think it's marketing. They must have loved it. Oh, this is great. We can just plaster this all over the place. And I know, actually, I've got a friend who did the PR for it in the UK, and he's just been nominated for an award for the marketing campaign because it was so good. But apart from that, I'm just not sure about the film. If you've got 90... there are worse ways to spend 90 minutes, but don't think it's one thing.
I mean, I kept thinking if I was 18 and as interested in film as I was at 18... I'd just lap this up exactly like I did because Kids came out just at the right time.
Oh, Kids
is different.
Kids is different, but it's still got that kind of...
Nothing happens, but
it's got that air of a film where when you're just really taking an interest in cinema and you haven't seen a lot of film, there are certain films that come along and you think, wow, this is a whole different type of film. And I could see Spring Breakers doing something similar to what Kids did, which was, okay, I've seen films about teenagers before and teenage shenanigans. This is a very different version of that. Whole new, and that leads on to a film. Same with Spring Breakers. I see Spring Breakers as something that kids who haven't seen many films, which, when you're younger, you haven't, because there's not enough time. It'll be this type of thing that kind of...
Yeah, maybe.
In a few years' time, they'll see a Terrence Malick film and go, okay,
I mean, look,
that's what that was doing.
It should be applauded for being different.
Because
it could very much have been girls get guns, go to spring break and rob places. You can imagine how that film would work out, chuck in a lesbian three-way in there and you're good to go. And it's not that, it is trying to be different. My problem, there's no consequence in it. I mean, there's a spoiler coming up. I mean, James Franco dies at the end. He gets shot because they try and do this. They try and go and kill this drug dealer who's kind of their competition. But kind of by the end of it, the 2 girls that are left down in Florida Keys they've just done it. They've killed everyone and they're in his Ferrari driving down the road. That's it. I mean, I don't know what it's trying to do, what it's trying to achieve, what it's trying to say. I don't know. That's the thing.
I think what did it was I kind of thought if this film wasn't as interestingly put together, I still wouldn't like these people at all, and I wouldn't be I wouldn't be sat here.
Yeah, if the only reason
I got up to the bit when there's a great monologue where he's talking about all the shit he owns.
He's on the bed. Yeah,
I kind of watched that bit and I thought, I don't need to see any more of this now.
It doesn't get any better, no. And like you said, and when you're watching a film because James Franco's doing a great performance, that's not really the best reason to watch a film, is it? If all else around him... Like, none of the other girls do anything special at all. They just turn up and do a bit of acting. They're not really distinguishable characters. They're all kind of quite homogenised. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't say steer clear of it. Like I said, at least it's trying to do something different. He's probably one to watch in terms of a director, because he is doing interesting stuff. He just needs to potentially get his head out of his bum and just think about it before he does it, because I don't think he's good enough to shoot a 90-minute improvised film yet. That's all.
Okay, so that was the Sarnia Cinema podcast.
Let us know if any of you think that there is a masturbation joke in Kick-Ass 2.
There is, I promise you.
Okay. I might have to go and watch the start again just to check.
I'm going to search online.
Now, this weekend coming up, we've got Two Guns.
Two Guns.
I thought Tony Scott was dead. We've got Pain and Gain.
Oh, now that looks good. I'm not joking. That looks excellent.
Yeah. So, Michael Bay there. The Lone Ranger's on. Not that anyone's interested.
No.
And we got Morgan Spurlock's 1D, One Direction, This Is Us coming
Wicked.
up. So we'll probably take a look at some of those. Might not have a look at some of the other ones. If you've got 4OD, there was a really good documentary about One Direction.
Yes, there was, about the fans. Yeah.
That was very good.
What did you think of that?
It was wicked.
I thought
They're
that
nuts.
some of the shots were very, very clever. I'm not even joking about this, but there was they gave the whole history of all these fandoms and as much as One Direction for 3 years. But then they showed you where these girls were from and what was going on in their lives, and they literally don't have anything else happening. And it was very, very clever the way that they didn't say anything about it, but they just showed you where they were living, they showed you what was going on, and I just thought that's clever.
There
Scariest
was a point where I was
really
thinking,
clever.
there's something wrong here, there's something wrong here. You know what? If I was a child carer for my disabled mother, I'd check out a bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scariest thing was with the One Direction premiere last night in Leicester Square on the news this morning. I saw some of those girls in the front row at Leicester Square trying to meet them again. So they really do get around.
But they're just complete. But they're just on another on
a whole other plane.
One of the lads has got engaged today.
Oh,
Really?
I heard
fantastic!
on
Oh, which one?
Radio 2 News.
Which one?
Is it Zayn?
Zayn.
Oh no, he's going to break a lot of hearts.
It's broken my heart.
I know. And on that tragic note, we will leave you. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, where we promise to do some more stuff because we've been a bit slack recently. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.